If you have noticed your parents asking you to repeat yourself constantly or wincing at their TV volume, there is a hidden pattern here that most families miss entirely. It is a subtle shift that has nothing to do with getting older or being stubborn. There are quiet signals that prove someone is struggling with hearing that do not even involve speech. Once you know what to look for, you can spot the exact moment their brain overworks just to keep up. Today, we will discover the real signs that matter and why they are the last to notice. Stick around until the end for a 10-second check you can do at home together to reveal exactly where they stand without any awkwardness. So basically, there are a few particular signs that tend to show up consistently when someone is dealing with a hearing clarity issue, and knowing what to look for makes it a lot easier to have the conversation when the time comes. The first and most obvious one is the TV volume. If they have it set to a level that genuinely bothers everyone else in the room, and it has been creeping up gradually over the months, that is one of the most reliable early indicators. What makes it telling is not just the volume itself, but the fact that even at high volume, they still sometimes miss dialogue and need subtitles. That combination, loud but still unclear, points to a clarity gap rather than a simple volume issue. The second sign is asking people to repeat themselves, and specifically what happens after they repeat. If you repeat something and they still seem uncertain or only partially catch it, the issue is not that you were speaking quietly. It is that specific sounds are not landing clearly, regardless of volume. The third sign is struggling in noisy environments, restaurants, family gatherings, any space with background sound. If they seem to check out of group conversations or stay quieter than usual in those settings, it is often because following multiple voices against background noise has become genuinely exhausting rather than enjoyable. And the fourth sign is one most families overlook entirely: missing sounds that are not speech at all. The doorbell, a phone ringing in another room, a microwave beeping, high-pitched sounds like doorbells and alarm notifications are often the first to fade, and the brain adjusts to accommodate the change, sometimes without the person even realizing it. So if your parent seems consistently unaware of these kinds of sounds, that is a meaningful signal about where their high-frequency hearing currently sits. Here is the part that is important to understand before you have any kind of conversation about this, because it shapes everything about how that conversation should go. Most people do not notice a gradual hearing clarity change from the inside. The brain is remarkably good at compensating, watching faces more carefully, leaning on context, predicting what was said from how a sentence was going. These adaptations happen automatically, and they work just well enough that the person genuinely does not feel like their hearing has changed. They just feel like people have started mumbling more, or the audio quality on TV has gotten worse, or restaurants have gotten louder. On top of that, there is the emotional side of it. Many people associate hearing aids with getting older, and accepting that they might need one can feel like admitting decline. That resistance is not stubbornness for its own sake. It is a very understandable response to something that touches on independence and identity, and pushing too hard against it almost always makes it worse rather than better. On average, people wait around 10 years from when hearing changes first start affecting daily life before actually doing anything about it. 10 years of compensating, of half-following conversations, of quietly withdrawing from situations that used to feel easy. Knowing how to raise this is just as important as knowing what the signs are, because the wrong approach can shut the whole conversation down before it gets anywhere. The most important thing is to lead with what you have observed rather than what you think the conclusion is. Johns Hopkins Medicine specifically recommends starting with something like, "I've noticed that when we talk on the phone, you don't always catch what I've said, and I wanted to check in about that." That framing opens a door rather than delivering a verdict, and it gives them room to respond without feeling cornered or judged. Keep the focus on specific moments rather than general patterns. Saying, "You always miss what I say," puts someone on the defensive immediately. Saying, "I noticed at dinner last week that you seem to be missing parts of the conversation," gives them something concrete to reflect on without feeling like an accusation. And be genuinely prepared for them to push back the first time. That is completely normal. The goal of the first conversation is usually just to plant the idea, not to resolve everything in one sitting. Letting the person digest the information and come back to it in their own time tends to be far more effective than pressing for an immediate decision. If they are open to it, suggesting a simple at-home check together can feel much less intimidating than talking about appointments or devices. Ask them to sit quietly and rub their thumb and index finger together about 6 inches from their ear. They should hear a soft, crisp little sizzle. If that sound is very faint or barely there, their ears are likely missing upper range frequencies, and having that small moment of personal awareness can sometimes open a conversation more naturally than anything you could say to them directly. It is painful to watch someone you love gradually pull away from conversations because following them has become too exhausting. It is even harder when they do not see it happening themselves. Once you open that door and they recognize this as a specific clarity gap, the solution does not have to be intimidating or expensive. If you want to help them bridge that gap without the hurdles of a clinic, HearDirectClub's Nova is designed for exactly this situation. It targets the speech frequencies they have been missing so they can stay connected to the family table. Whether you give it to them for their upcoming birthday or a parent's wedding anniversary, it is a gift that truly changes their daily life. Check the link in the description to find the Nova and use code YT10 for 10% off. Subscribe for more guides on how to help the people you care about stay sharp and connected.